Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Syndicate members, what is going on? It's Wednesday. We are a few minutes late. We apologize. We have some internet difficulties over here. Going to have to get the provider on the line. But we're here with you, ready to win. It is Winning on Wednesday. My name's Tony Merwin. That is the king of trucking, the king of Facebook groups, Mr. Joe Camper himself. He's got a phenomenal lineup of some guests that we have on today. We are super excited to bring them on. But Joe, let them know what's up.
Oh, man. Well, you guys can see it in the description. He just talked about trucking. We are talking some trucking today, but then we are also talking about some other resources, some tech stacks, some really just top-class freaking recruiting, things like that. So we're really excited to have these gentlemen on the show. Before we get going, shout out to our main sponsor, Viva Virtual Solutions. Shout out to Lily Davies. You can see her saying what's up to everybody in the comments. I see you there too, JR. What's up, man? But again, shout out to Viva. They are the main sponsor of the show. We could not do it without them. And I know just our company, Clearview, on our side of things, everything they're doing on the virtual assistant side of things, seriously, it's just been amazing to rock with them. So shout out to Rob Lopez and to Lily Davies with Viva Virtual Solutions. But before we get into the show, we bring on our awesome guest. Y'all know what day it is, and you know what time it is, right? It's the peak of the week, y'all. It's Winning on Wednesday. Start dropping those weekly wins in the comments. We want to be able to celebrate you. I don't care how big or how small. I see you guys tuning in. Drop those weekly wins in the comments. Mr. Merwin, go ahead and kick us off, man. What you got cooking?
Weekly win for Wednesday is easily going to be some team development, man. It's something we've been working on as our team's been growing, is making sure that we are accountable, meeting every week, doing some training, working on different elements in the business. We have a perfect process and training going on that I couldn't be more proud of. I'm seeing the results. Team is doing great. Culture's growing. Production's up. Everybody's happy.
Love that. Love
Absolutely.
that. Huge shout out. I guess let's just stay here real quick. I want to ask you this. For anybody that maybe would combat the daily, right? Because I know you guys are literally like daily training every single morning. What would you say to somebody who says maybe that's too much, right? Where it's like, hey, let's just do a weekly meeting, or let's do maybe, a monthly, whatever it is. Like, what do you think you've really gotten from doing the literally every single day training?
We've gotten growth in production, number one. A lot more unification as far as the team message, the way we say things, the way we present the brand, etc. Brings a unification in the organization that is so much better to perpetuate everybody at a higher level. You get a great momentum out of it, truthfully. And I think that's a big part of it. It builds momentum, which is going to increase every aspect. Big part of it is you have to, as the leader in the organization, you do have to be able to get everybody online with your vision, what you're trying to accomplish, so that they understand where we're going. It's not just what I see on the surface every day. There's somewhere that the whole unit is headed. And if you can get everybody tied into that, I think it makes it a lot easier. I
think it's a great way to start your day too. Something that I'm looking to potentially implement as well. Is having that daily, like, again, kind of to your point, the momentum, like kicking the day off with that. Love that, man.
Get you in the right mindset. I mean, you walk in cold and just jump on the phone and pick up and make a cold call or whatever. Like, you're not going to be running at a high level on that phone call. So get you a chance to get wound up, get in the mindset. That first call's hot.
Agreed. My weekly win, guys, I'm getting ready to announce it in the group. I don't even know if I'm necessarily, you saw me getting everything worked up yesterday, and I didn't end up posting it yet. But I have a big announcement. I'm going to go ahead and just share it here and just be on the lookout within the group. But something I've been working on quite diligently with a company called CallSync. They are a new preferred vendor of the group and the sponsor of our Friday show, The Invested American, with Ali and Alex Sala. CallSync is basically their customer-initiated inbound calls, and I've been working with them on the auto side. We just had our first auto calls come through yesterday, and we're sending out proposals, and I'm really freaking excited, y'all, because it's finally worked. You guys, you haven't seen any of the back office, and Scribner, if you're watching this, thank you, man. But we finally got all the connectivity issues fixed and figured out, and so we've got auto inbound, customer-initiated inbound personal auto leads starting – well, really yesterday, but I'm going to start rolling it out to the group for some early access to get y'all in there. So be on the lookout in the group for that, y'all. But without further ado, you guys, again, can see in the description, we're talking a lot of trucking today, but we are talking again about the resources and the tech stack. And really, again, I think just the education that you need to have within the trucking and transportation space, within the insurance industry when it comes to that, we'll call it that niche within that vertical. But ultimately, again, everything you need to kind of support that large operation. So I'm really excited to have John and Cam join us today. I'm going to go ahead and bring them on just to make sure, in case our internet goes out, at least they're on the show. I prepped them. I said, guys, you may be running winning on Wednesday, depending on if we get.
Let's do it. Let's do it, baby.
Love it, man. Well, welcome to the show, y'all. Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks, Joe and Tony. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate you guys stopping by.
Dude, I get so amped every time that intro plays, boy. I think it's amazing. It's like that's a good thing to rock to early in the morning because it is 7 a.m. here. So
it
gets me going.
I forget. That's why he's got that full cup of coffee.
Cam's going to be chugging.
Yep.
Cam's going to be chugging.
Espresso over there.
Well, and then I don't know. I do have a problem sometimes. I get super amped up at night because I'll get an idea going or I'll have a win or I'll have something that I got locked in and then I stay up thinking about it and I can't go to sleep half the time. So late night.
Perfect. It's perfect that you brought that up since it is winning on Wednesday. We shared our weekly wins. So what's a big weekly win for you then that you've been keeping?
I will table that one because I'm going to go with something that was exciting for me. So I took my beautiful wife and then my two daughters down to Santa Rosa this last weekend for the Summer Country Music Festival.
Oh, cool.
With the lineup, it was Sam Hunt, Mitchell Tenpenny, Gabby Barrett, Kane Brown, Dustin. I mean, it was like a rock and stellar lineup. And we treated it kind of as a getaway family trip as well because of, I don't know if you've been to California lately, but it's expensive.
Well, not lately.
And so I said, babe, this is a little mini trip for us. So count this one off, check it. But anyway, so it was good to get away, unplug. And for me, that was a good win.
Yeah, absolutely. John, we'll start with weekly wins and then we'll kind of get into some of y'all's backstory, just a little bit who you are. John, what's a weekly win for you, my man?
Cool. I love it, man. So I am on day number 4 right now of my water fast. I'm hitting it hard again. So I'm going for 14 days this time, but I'm feeling good, man. I hit the 4 days and you hit 4 days, you start feeling good. So my mind's firing up. So it's good. So that's my win.
14 days is your goal?
That's where I'm going, Tony. Come on, baby. Let's do it. You want to do it together? Let's go.
No.
Yeah, I don't
think I do.
No, it's
suddenly the internet cut out.
The longest I've gone is actually 4 days. So I'm breaking that. I just broke that by 2 hours this morning. So anyone that's interested in doing a fast, I mean, the trick is to get past the 4 days because like now I feel good. Like day 1, 2, and 3, man, they suck. Like they're hard. Discipline is like next level. But yeah, I mean, I didn't even tell Cam about it because I was like, what's that?
What caused it? Why'd you decide to do it?
Discipline and clarity is my biggest thing. It's just, I mean, there's like no bigger, way to gain strength and discipline than fasting. Because it's one of those things on top of like trying to build a business that you're like, you really have to push yourself to say, why am I doing this? And so for me, it's like a mental clarity, discipline thing. And there's a lot of benefits, that I found in fasting personally. So, I mean, everyone's different, but yeah.
I like that. Nice. Man. I like that. Well, I guess real quick for anybody that doesn't know y'all, Cam's obviously been in the group for years and definitely prominent over in the trucking syndicate. I guess a quick little shout out. If you are in the trucking, transportation, kind of commercial auto space, or just really working with truckers, we do have a specific syndicate group called the Trucking Syndicate. So if you're not in that group, you should be able to just find it and it'll auto add you because you're in this main syndicate group. But definitely check that out. Cam's always dropping a bunch of value over there. But John, we'll go ahead and kick off with you, man. I love that you led with discipline and clarity. Just give us a little bit about John. Let people know who you are. A little 30,000 foot overview. We'll do a little round robin, get into some of y'all's backstory, and then kind of get into Valey, IO, all the things you guys are doing on that side.
Yeah, of course. So my name is John Marienau. I'm a builder at heart. I've spent the last 15 years building and scaling businesses, both domestically and internationally. So I've actually spent a total of 7 years living in India and the Philippines split, just building companies over there. So primarily in logistics and operations. So internationally, it's been more operations. Domestically, I've built and scaled a trucking company and a freight brokerage. After experience burnout myself, that's where I created Valey to try and help people be able to scale and go through that glass ceiling without experiencing what I did. So yeah, I mean, that's 30,000 foot view of mine. It just, I have a deep passion for helping people break through that glass ceiling of scaling and don't face burnout like I faced myself.
Yeah, it's good. That's
you
good.
Were building trucking companies or businesses in India and the Philippines. Did I catch that?
Yeah, that's close. So actually I worked with NGOs in operations overseas in the Philippines, and in domestically here in the US, I built a trucking company and a freight brokerage.
Okay.
Got it. Cam, real quick, man, 30,000 foot overview.
Yeah, let's go, bud.
Tell people how to pronounce your last name correctly too, because you never correct anybody, but
yeah. But I don't hold it against anyone. Usually it's a bill collector. You call me and they say it wrong. It's like, oh, bill collector for sure.
Yeah.
You know, my background's been sales since 20. You know, in the insurance industry. So I'm kind of one of those unique birds that, you know, I had no options. There's nothing I could do with my life. And then insurance came to me and was like, you're going to do insurance. And I'm like, yes, I am. This is the greatest industry of all time. I absolutely love it. So, you know, a lot of sales experience. I've done that almost 20 years. I was figuring out how old I was. I'm like, dude, I'm almost 20 years into this game.
Wow.
It's been a minute. And so, you know, fast forward into business ownership and growth and scale. And we've, you know, grown a multi-million-dollar a year operation and continue. I feel like we're just getting started. That's the cool thing about what this industry does for me every day is like, I see ways to innovate, scale, bring value, really set us apart, help our clients and deliver like just that, you know, just the highest level that they deserve. And so I don't know, I get stoked every day, man. It's not work when you don't show up. And what's cool is I don't think I've sold a policy. I swear coming on a year now, something like that. I mean, I guess I probably have been involved in a couple things, but like to legit just go hunt, which I love to do, by the way. I love hunting. So when you're working on the business and scale and building and process implementation and all the things, dude, it's a very slow burn and it's very painful when you're used to getting quick wins and being very successful in sales. So it's been a shift over the last couple of years for me mentally to kind of go CEO level and take it to the next level. So
what's your hunt now? What's your prey? What are you hunting?
Oh gosh, sanity, birdies on the golf course. And no, I'm just, you know, sanity, partially joking. You know, a lot of it for me is it's a delayed gratification now. So like when we spend time doing, you know, core values and speaking the language, and do we have the right people, right seats? Like we follow traction model in our businesses. And so like once we go through and see the different departments and teams meeting weekly, doing their rocks and quarterly, being dedicated to KPIs, seeing the growth and then like actually kind of seeing it come about. Like I was talking with my leadership team about this. We're like, we see the light. Like we're like, I could see it working. It's amazing, but it took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of like just, you know, thankless hours. And as a business owner, that's what I'm used to anyway. Like we're doing what others don't do every single day without ever even thinking about it. It doesn't ever matter to me. But the cool thing about sales is you get that gratification piece. So you get that dopamine hit, you get the relationships, you get to get out, you get to do your thing. As I've removed it, my sales have changed now more towards acquisitions of trucking producers, books, agencies, relationships, vendor partner, carrier relationships, things that, you know, help me, I guess, scale in other ways. So those are more of my wins now, but I do get excited when I see a process work. It's like teaching a little kid's sports team. When I coach my daughter's soccer, you teach them a play in the game, you see them execute, you're like, yes,
let's go.
Yes.
Nothing better.
Like it's kind of that type thing. So
we've had this conversation when I made that shift in our agency, right? Where it was, that was the hardest decision for me, because I knew if I wasn't producing, one, I'm not going to have the sales, right? So hopefully this recruiting thing and showing other people the processes works. And it was also like, man, nobody's ever going to do it like Joe does. But at the same time, the business would never grow the way that Joe wanted it to grow if Joe was still so busy working in it. And I tell you, like the shift for me was seeing people come in. I'm going to give a shout out to Todd Wilson. He's my top guy now. You've talked with Todd before, Cam, and just seeing him, on his second day in the freaking business, closing out almost a $30,000 trucking account, right? And it's like those are like those hits, right? Like that executed play where, oh man, that feeling is almost better than when I was selling the policy myself, because you see the other people get to make those wins, right? So I love that. I love that.
Jim Rome, baby, help others get what they want.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, Cam, I'm gonna have you kind of lead off just some of y'all's backstory, you and John. I was telling you, I was watching y'all's episode together. You're like, bro, that was a hot minute ago, man. But just kind of maybe just share a little bit how y'all actually met. John, talk a little bit about the domestics companies that you have here, the trucking company and the brokerage. Yeah. But again, just talk through some of that relationship piece, because I think that's actually a really cool part of the story, which is how now y'all have gotten together with Valey and what you're doing to help other people that are kind of in the same shoes you guys were. So, dude,
I love it. Absolutely. And thanks for bringing my my podcast like one more view. So I think we're at 5 now with my family and you. So that'll be great. Appreciate that. I met John actually as a client. So I cold called John, to be honest, one time. I think I cold called him. I think I voicemail dropped him back when you could do voicemail drops legally.
Yeah.
And then he called me back off my voicemail. We had a conversation and he's like, I don't know why I'm talking to you. I have zero clue who you are, but we ended up connecting and ended up actually helping and connecting through his trucking company. So that's how I actually got introduced to John. So we were working together for years and years now. And he's out of Vegas. So I'd go down to Vegas and go hang out and more on a client relationship, but it's always been on a business to business owner level. Like we didn't talk insurance. It was more growth and strategy and dreams and what are we going to end up doing? So quickly I learned as far as operations and an operator goes, I'm like, dude, John he was one of my best clients as far as examples of a trucking company go for scale and build out and process and marketing and like you name it. I remember just being kind of so wowed by kind of what he brought to the table. Well, then fast forward to like an actual relationship and on a friend level where, checking in and how you doing. And, John had some things going on in his life and I just kind of stayed in touch. And like, we just built a really good relationship, like a solid, just like you would anybody. And I'll let John talk about a little bit of his story, with what he experienced, but through that, I just kept in touch, we kept in contact and I'm like, dude, we got to do a project or we need to do. And what we didn't set out to necessarily start or venture on a company or anything like that. It was like, hey, let's maybe look at a marketing project. Let's look at this. Can we do an innovative thing? Like, what is there that we can do, collaborate and just kind of get hands on and get back to doing something. And so for, I don't know, John, how long was it? It was probably months and months of just kind of collaboration back and forth from let's blow out Cameron Pechia is going to be the brand. We're going to do this. We're going to be, we're going to blow this thing up. Let's make Valey trucking insurance to the moon, like all these different things. Now that's all kind of still in play. But it evolved very quickly to, like we both kind of saw this opportunity for scale. So little backstory for that. He mentioned glass ceilings and I run into this a ton and I wish that I had resources like your group when I was coming up at 20 years old. I really do. I was searching for mentorship and guidance and all this, even locally. Well, back then, and maybe it's different now, but back then, they're all your competitors. So like nobody talks to you. Nobody helps you. Nobody wants to talk anything about strategies because they're nervous or they're worried. Even I'm in different rooms now, much bigger rooms now. And there's still some of that. Like, hey, we got this proprietary.
Don't give them everything.
There's all this stuff. And it's like, I mean, we could all read the same book. How you implement is different than how I implement, and what that looks like is different. We're serving different sectors, segments, clients, and there's so much business that I've always had that. Never had a scarcity mindset, right? Like ever. So it's like abundance. How can I help others? How can I help people? I will take calls, and Joe, you know this. You've turned on quite a few people to me, and hey, talk to Cam. He'll give you some guidance and help. And I truly believe that, because I had that. Once I kind of met some key players in the industry that were willing to just have a conversation, willing to tell me how they did it, how they did this thing, how they scaled, what they face, how they deal, you know, and like realizing like, oh man, I'm not alone in a lot of this. You know, but then once you deal with kind of the market we're in, and, you know, reducing commissions in some cases, and client unrest, if you will, I've never seen retention numbers kind of dip like they have in the last year. Some of that stuff, you know, I realize like that's going to cause burnout. That's going to cause issues with staff. That's going to cause issues with clients, the experience, and a bunch of that kind of stuff. And so we adopted using virtual employees, virtual assistants, outsourcing, automation, delegation. Like we embraced that really early on. And, you know, I didn't even know this when I was working with John, but once we started connecting kind of after the fact, I knew that he had outsourced people. Well, he lived over in the Philippines. He lived over in India, and he scaled his business similarly to how we did. And we had talked about that, of kind of breaking through these glass ceilings. How do you get more time? Well, you got to buy it or delegate it or automate it. How do you do that? Well, I can hire people to help boost them up, and I can create these automations for the client interact. There's all these things we can do, but ultimately it was like more great, amazing people to support the amazing people that I need, not doing low level or things that are like maybe monotonous, or maybe they're not good at. Like, it's like, you know, you do the 4 quadrants of what you're good at, what you like, you know, those different things. It's like, how do we get everybody in my organization doing what they're really good at, what energizes them, what they love, and minimize kind of that shallow work or the work that they don't love doing. Because everybody has it. For me, it used to be emails. I swear to God, I hired an executive assistant for emails solely. I swear to you, I did. My email inbox, dude, it was the craziest thing you've ever seen. Then I got an executive assistant, which I actually then ended up using Superhuman. I've been on inbox 0 for like over a year now, and it's so amazing. I'm almost addicted to it. It's like unhealthy now. It's like, you know, you're in that grind mode.
0, baby.
Did it. So fast forward, you know, talking about that's kind of where the evolution of some of that relationship with John occurred. And then we'll get into the company later, but yeah, that, you know, I just admire John. John's amazing. You know, we built a really good relationship, hit it off, you know, it was awesome.
Love it, man. I love it. John, I want to dive a little bit deeper into why you started the trucking company in the brokerage, right? And I think, again, we have a lot of obviously insurance agents watching this, right? But we have quite a healthy following of people that are operating in the trucking and transportation space, really just, we'll say, commercial auto in general, right? But can you talk through just some of your experience just as a trucker, right? The episode I was watching, you know, like I've had your CDL for over 15 something years. And I mean, just talk through some of what that looked like, because I think that gives an agent a really good perspective on how we can help our trucking clients, right? Like that's what Cam said, like, dude, this guy is just, I can already tell he's going to be my freaking best client. And that's because of all the processes and the operations and everything you had in place. So I think kind of educating people how you did that on the insurance side allows us to become a better insurance agent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love it, Joe. And Cam, thanks for the kind words, man. You're a solid dude. Anyone that knows you knows you're a solid guy, and I'm grateful to be in partnership with you, or be a friendship with you, is for sure. So yeah, Joe, rewind back. I've had my CDL now for, not to age myself, just turned 40, got my CDL literally the day I turned 21. Drove truck, delivered groceries, did all that stuff. Did that for about 4 years actually as a driver before I went overseas. And I went overseas and just basically my dad, you know, long story short, my dad started a company in India to build affordable housing for a nonprofit over there. And they needed a project manager. Of course, I was not a project manager, but I raised my hand quickly and said, I'm in, let's go, let's do this. So my wife and I moved over to India for 5 years and worked over there. Then it ended up in the Philippines. My wife's actually from the Philippines, been married for 15 years. So I spent a lot of time over there. I love it there. And when we moved back after those 7 years, one of my best friends actually was here in Las Vegas. And we decided to, come here in Vegas and, see what's up here. It was warm. That's all we really cared about. And my friend and myself decided to start a trucking company. And originally the goal, Joe, wasn't what it ended up being. Originally the goal was, we're going to get a truck. Him and I are going to get in it, which we did. We teamed it for 6 months, raised some money, bought another truck. My wife got her CDL. His wife got his CDL. We sold everything we owned. And we both drove and got in the truck and just grinded. I mean, lived in that truck. I mean, God bless my wife. I mean, my wife's 5'1", petite Filipina. She's still got her CDL and incredible looking back on what I put her through there. But our goal actually, Joe, was to build enough capital to invest in real estate, right? This is probably most people's story. They want to invest in real estate or some long-term assets. Well, after a while, my really good friend that I built the company with, we got motivated by seeing like, well, what can we change in this market and how can we change it? How can we make it better? And we got fired up on what you guys are doing in the insurance industry, right? Is like the building the business. It's, it's unhealthy on some aspects, but there's definitely an addiction there. And we ended up bringing on 2 drivers actually right about when COVID hit. We bought on 2 drivers. Thankfully, COVID was pretty good for the trucking industry. And, we just started to build it from there. So we went from wanting to raise money to actually building out a trucking industry. And I appreciate, again, what Cam said about how we built. Origin was the trucking company. And we started in 2018 is actually when we started that company. And a lot of that credit goes to the team, though. We were fortunate enough to build up a great team and a great back end to be able to do so. We started with 1 truck, my partner and I in it, went to 2 trucks with our wives in the trucks to build money. By the time I left the companies 2 years ago, we were at 26 trucks built up. And so we were mostly just W-2 company drivers doing lanes on the West Coast. And in 21, we decided to start a freight brokerage, which is another beast. And this is a completely separate company. There's regulations, and actually Cam helped me a lot through this as well with insurance. But we set up 2 different teams to run, different areas. But we set up the freight brokerage to actually service our clients in the trucking because we had a lot of overages, right? And just like you probably in insurance, we would have our best customers that we gained through the years saying, hey, can you guys get this? And we hated saying no. And so because we had great relationships with them, we were able to scale the freight brokerage quickly. So by the time I left, our trucking was around 10 million a year and our freight brokerage was around 8. And the freight brokerage scaled like crazy just because, again, we had that in with our clients.
Yeah.
And frankly, I tell everyone, I burn out. I had 2 great partners. We ended up bringing on another partner in 21. Great guy, love them both to death to this day. I, didn't heed some warning signs and I hit a wall. And, that was 2 years ago, kind of took a sabbatical. Cam, being a great friend, was there, the whole time, talked through it and just kind of some things that I learned. And I was one of these guys, Joe and Tony, that I definitely ate my words, right? Because I always looked at burnout as a mythical creature. I mocked it. So, I was just young and amped up and on fire and did a lot of stuff, got a little too cocky for myself. And, I always looked at burnout as just a mythical creature, just keep grinding, just keep hustling, just keep pushing. Well, lo and behold, here we are.
Yeah.
And it all happens for a reason, right? I'm grateful now. I've accepted like the process and I wouldn't be here, doing what I'm doing today to help other people if it wasn't for that experience.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Is that potentially when fasting started?
Kind of. I mean, yeah, truthfully, I mean, at 2 years, 2 years ago when that happened, man, it hit me so hard, Joe, that I really had to redefine who I was because, I went from, scaling that with my partners, of course, scaling that trucking company to 10 million from 0, and then the freight brokerage in 2 years to 8 million a year. And that was who I was, right? I was this. Like I was the trucking company. I was open haul. I was part of my team. And then when I burn out and left, who was I? Right. So that happened quick. And that's something that, I'd tell anybody to looking to leave a company is just consider that, because your identity is really wrapped up in what you do. Like that was my hobby, building businesses. It wasn't fishing and stuff. I probably should have got one. It probably would have helped maybe, but my hobby really was building businesses on the weekend. How do we do things different? How do we evolve our team? And so, yeah, when I got out of that for the last 2 years, it's been to how do I improve myself? Because obviously something broke me and I'm the one that made, that was on me. That was my issue. No one else did this to me. I did it. So why did that happen? So definitely fasting was a reason for that, and I tried everything, man. I tried a lot of stuff, probably stuff we shouldn't talk about on here, but anything to find myself, to really dig deep and ground myself again. Yeah.
What'd you discover?
I'm still discovering, Tony. Honestly, I think the biggest thing for me, Tony, is self-awareness.
Yes.
Just realizing that one of the reasons I burn out in my company, just being transparent here, was I was afraid to ask for help. I saw it as a sign of weakness for some reason deep down. I felt like if I went to someone like Joe, right, and I said, "Hey, Joe, I don't know anything about trucking insurance, brother. I own 26 trucks. I don't know anything about it." Joe might judge me and say, this is I'm just using a random example here, but Joe might judge me and be like, "Dude, this guy's running 26 trucks, doesn't know anything." I realized that's not the truth at all. Anyone that's succeeding in business wants to help. Cam, that's one of the reasons we have such a great relationship. Cam always wanted to help, and from day one, that's why that's not why I returned Cam's call. I returned Cam's call because I actually needed someone that knew what they were talking about in trucking insurance. Trucking insurance is more complex than an auto policy, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed some education, but yeah, I mean, that was basically it with that.
That's interesting because Cam earlier said that he spent time cold calling people asking for help, right? Yep. Reaching out to business owners, trying to say, "Hey, how do I scale this? How do I do this?" And learning. Like you mentioned that you were a very active learner, which a lot of agents certainly don't do. I think that's a big part of why a large percentage of agents fail. But that's interesting that was an opposite for John. He was like, I was afraid to ask for help. So I'm kind of curious how that might have affected y'all's relationships and, in that regards. So one guy's actively looking for help. One guy's, you feel like you're in a shell. You don't want to ask for help.
Maybe that's the perfect middle ground, right?
Yeah.
I think this is what I want to ask. That's because I know both of y'all have this. I know freaking Cam is a weekend warrior as well, right? But you're talking about dude, that was my hobby, was building businesses on the weekend. How can I make Valey Trucking better, right? How can I make Valey better? And all the other companies that you were working with, Origin, I think you said was the trucking company name. Where the hell do you get that from, bro? There are so many other things you could be doing on the weekend. So was it how you were raised? Do you think you were born with it? I kind of like asking this question because there's a lot of people out here that are potentially not having success because they're not grinding on the weekends, or they don't. And maybe it's because they just don't have it in them or whatever. I'm just curious, and for me now, with kids, it's a little bit different now with family, but for me, it was always I'm working on the weekends, man. I'm trying to build this. And I don't know if maybe that's because of my aspirations and the dreams that I have. And maybe that's why I'm working on it. Where do y'all get that from? Where literally, John, you said, and Cam, I know that you can relate to this too. It's probably why part of why you guys are friends is, dude, I'm down to build a business on the freaking weekend. Where does that come from?
For me, I think from early on, I grew up I don't want to say poor because that's such a terrible term to use, especially in the global scale of what people go through. But a single mom, multiple children, grew up in a single wide trailer, just a different lifestyle. So I have a lot of stories about childhood and things that we experienced, kind of went through that kind of stuff, free food type things, lot more hairy things. Through high school, played sports. I think the competitive edge comes from, I think there is some competitiveness naturally in people, especially when you're an athlete, you play sports, you have that fire, that drive, all the things that come from team sports. So I think that stayed with me. And then it's crazy. I had all these different hobbies growing up. I knew what I didn't want to do was go to school. That's what I knew what I didn't want to do. Looking back, I have some regrets of not going to university and some other things like that, dropping out, that kind of stuff. But So, growing up poor, I remember being like, all right, I'm never going to live in a trailer. I know that for a fact. And then, once you're in your teenage years and everything, and I was like, okay, I did construction. I thought I wanted to actually be a chef. So I went to culinary school for a bit, dropped out of that, realized I don't want to cook for a living. But I always was attracted to business, like suits and business and that kind of style. I don't know why. So I transferred for like a business AAS degree. Insurance was like kind of presented to me as an option from one of my best friends, which I have on a podcast, different story we could talk about another time. We had started a vending machine business and a bunch of other crazy things. So like entrepreneurship and business or hustling is kind of how I looked at it back then, because I knew no better. Was like, okay, I want to do that. I'm not very employable. I kind of realized that very early on after getting fired from multiple jobs, just because you do what you want and you're like, yeah, you're supposed to be here at 10, like, I'll be there at 11:30 type thing, as a kid, just stupid things. Like it wasn't, I would have hated to hire myself back then. So I think that motivation just comes from like, one, having a chip on your shoulder, growing up in that situation, not wanting to be poor, always kind of being a hustler. And I've always kind of looked at problems or issues or potential perceived issues as opportunities. I've always figured out a way to figure out how to get opportunity out of whatever situation is presented to me. I've always thought that way. My mind just thinks that way. But the other piece of that is I think when I limited my opportunities, not graduating, there's a lot of things that as a kid you go through and you experience that could bring depression or doubt, or like, I'm never going to amount to anything, trying to find yourself or whatever the issue was. I remember thinking like, I don't have anything I can go do. No one would hire me. I don't have education. I don't have, all this kind of stuff. And then when insurance came about, I was so grateful for the opportunity and the door that opened and stepping through it. Obviously, you got to pass the test. You got to do all that. I did that when I was 20, turning 21, by the way, which was wild. And you had to score like a 75. I think they've dropped the score now. So
70 now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. But I was so grateful for the opportunity and like honestly feeling like I had no other opportunities to go do anything else, because I had applied for a bunch of other jobs and fire department and a bunch of things I wanted to do. No one would take me. And I remember like two things that occurred. One, it was like boiler room. Me and my buddy legit scrubbed the internet, created our own lead list, looked on county parcels, and we'd sort it by alphabet, and we'd go into each one and look at X dates for contractors and all this kind of stuff. And we would just cold call. And I remember I just grinded on the phones. And I think it took a couple weeks. I landed my first sale. And I think it was a couple $1,000. I don't even know if it was a couple thousand in commission. It was probably a little bit less. But I remember at the time being like, that's the most money I've ever made in my life at one time. And all I had to do was call and talk to somebody. I'm like, I'm in. This is the career for me. I just got to talk to people and make money. I'm like, done. So we spent the next, years just grinding it out, cold calling every single day and figuring out ways how to make it, because we had no idea what we were doing. So much so that we partnered with his cousin. And I say partnered with because I was so thankful for her and so grateful that she let us just use her appointments, hang the license, and get a split, which now is just a producer. It's a remote producer.
Right.
But I remember at the time, I'm like, this is amazing. Dude, they sold work comp. That's what they specialized in. We tried to sell work comp in Washington, which for those that don't know, it's monopolistic. You can't sell work comp. So that probably was part of the success. We were so ignorant calling contractors to sell work comp in 07, 08. If you guys remember that, if you've been around long enough, it was a terrible time for economy, terrible for the construction market and contractors. But we would call them like pitching them, hey, we want to sell you, save money on your work comp and the GL and this. And it was such a bad market. And people were like, oh, I didn't know there's new work comp in town. Sure. Get a quote. And we made that for about a week. Once we finally talked to an underwriter finally sat us aside. And I remember her to this day. She's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you can't do this. We're like, no. And so she educated us. Like, she took the time to legit sit with us, educate us on the process. So fast forward, we figured out what we were doing and just kept going from there. So I think being just so grateful for the opportunity, honestly, is like, I see we have in this industry an ability to create something amazing, really change lives, really help people in their time of need. Like, once the insurance comes full circle, deliver on what we promised there. And then also, like, to your point on working whenever you want or on the weekends, dude, early on, I figured out, hey, if you just call people or answer the phone or respond to people or work on the weekends or grind a little bit more, all of a sudden it's like, dude, I just made a month's paycheck on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And I made more than my friends do in a month.
Right.
I'm like, why wouldn't I do that? Like, why would I waste this opportunity? And I've always been pretty driven and competitive. So I see, and it's no dig at anything, but I see other agents that have done it for forever. And it's like, you know, maybe they're just career agents, the lifestyle agents, whatever. And I'm like, I've just been always more driven than that. I'm like, why is that not more? How long you been doing this? I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm with you.
You know?
I'm with you on that, dude. Because sometimes I'll talk to like a 20, 25-year agent and I'm like, all right, what's your book at? And I'm like, you've been doing this for 25 years and you're at that? And again, to your point, not to dig. Hey, if they're their lifestyle kind of person. But yeah, I definitely, John, do you resonate with that, John, as far as just grateful for the opportunity, or do you kind of approach that differently?
Yeah, I mean, everything Cam said, we had a pretty similar childhood, maybe a little bit different. We actually grew up fairly close together, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. I was born in Sandpoint, Idaho, which is about an hour away from Cam. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in a split home. So my parents got divorced fairly early on, never looked at it. I mean, it was pretty normal, right? I mean, especially in today's world. My dad's always been a hustler. My dad, as long as I can remember, never had a job. He has owned his own engineering companies and worked up in the Northwest. He was actually a logger, owned a logging company, I guess I should say, up there. So I grew up in a town of 200 people, really small, and just saw him day in and day out, no matter what, Christmas Eve. And, some of that sucked, but as a kid, it was kind of cool. As a kid, I would see him get up and he had all these cool big machines you can imagine. So as a kid, I got to play on all these big pieces of equipment and mess around. I didn't realize at the time the stress he was going through to make this thing work. It was just a bunch of toys, $1 million toys to me, right? It was just fun to look at. And I think naturally that got instilled in me, but I also saw a part of my family that was broke, or not broke, again, like Cam said, that's all relevant. Depends on where you're looking at, but struggled, right? Abundance wasn't in the vocabulary. It was, how do we save? Look at coupons, right? And even to this day, Joe and Tony, I have a very weird hate for coupons. It's strange. It's wild how that stuff actually gets instilled in you, mm-hmm. to where my thinking is like, I want the best of the best. I want to be frugal. So I believe frugal is not being cheap, right? To where I want the best I can get, but I don't want to use a coupon, and it's strange. It's interesting how I was raised like that. So I think young, I even told myself, like, I never want to have to worry about money. Money is to be used as a tool, and that's it. I don't want to have talks about money. So much so that I think I actually disregarded it, and went a little too far the other way, to where I was a little reckless with it, per se. I noticed that even in the trucking company and stuff, I was like foot on the gas, like $1 million, let's go. $1 million bill, let's go. I don't care. Like, hit harder and faster and harder and faster. Well, if you're not careful, sometimes I get you in trouble, Yeah. And, mm-hmm. I've learned that before. I've learned it. Right. But yeah, I mean, I also was, I think I heard, Joe, that you were a musician, or you play music.
Not really. I mean, I did at one point. Yeah. And my brother, I can still play the harmonica and
okay, cool.
Yeah.
We can do some folk music. So when I was young, I actually moved to Southern Idaho, and I was in a band, Christian band, for years. I think I started at 12 years old, my church, and ended up going, we ended up doing like metalcore, we went straight that route, emo. I believe it or not, I had hair at one point. And we toured on the small stages like Warped Tour. I don't know if you've heard about Warped Tour and whatnot.
What? How do I not know this about you?
I mean, it was small scale. So like when you look it up, it's not like obviously I'm doing this, but it was fun. And I think one thing that led me into business was obviously the early childhood, but then the adrenaline rush you get from playing on stages. And I mean, I'm fully tatted. I got full tattoos going on. And I remember when I was young, I was, 18. I wasn't that young. I was definitely a little bit of a rebel. And I told myself at one point, because Travis Barker, from Blink-182, said he got all of his tattoos so he could never be employable. Of course, to be an idol, I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea, dude. Let's get all tatted up so we can't be employable. It worked for the most part. And, I got what I wished for. And so I wanted to be that rebel. a little bit and think big. And that adrenaline rush I got on stage, even if it was playing for a couple thousand people, was like, it's hard to replace. Yeah. So just like a drug, it's like you're searching for that and you're searching for it. The only other place I've ever found something similar to that is building a business. In building the good parts of the business, I want to say the big ideas. Yeah. One reason Cam and I get along is really good is because we thrive in those big ideas, that visionary state. You pull me down and start talking about, data entry and filing state taxes, like I'm out. Like that's not stuff I'm working on the weekend, right? But on the weekend, anything to build up our team, give our team support, make them better. That's, I believe, where that came from. That love of, I didn't even care if I was getting paid for it. That's always been, that's where Cam and I make a good partnership, is because he makes sure like revenue's there. For me, it's like, I want to build a freaking awesome product. I want to build something that looks good, smells good, feels good, sounds good. That's where I get my inspiration. I get fired up and can work for nonstop. Honestly, my wife has to pull me away from it a little bit, but yeah, I think that's where I got my drive.
Segue into that for Valey. Let's go ahead and take the last 15, 20 minutes here and just talk through. I can already see it in you, in the energy, right? It's like, and I love that. Honestly, I could keep going, but I want to make sure that you guys actually have the opportunity to talk about Valey and everything that you're doing on that side. But I think it's really powerful for people to understand the people behind the scenes, So thank you guys for sharing some of that story. I know a lot of people can relate and resonate with that, which again, it's a relationship business. I mean, it really is, right? A lot of what you guys are talking about, it's through relationships that we've gotten to the point that we are, right? So John, go ahead and segue into that, man. You're talking about, man, I'm hyped up, that dopamine hit. Talk through Valey and just what all you guys are doing on that side.
Yeah. So, Valey in short term is operations as a service, essentially. We help companies simplify operations, so going from like that, voice that I just came from and talking, essentially what we're building is something that we wish we always had. So in the trucking industry, where I found growth, because my family's from the Philippines, my wife's there, I've lived there. In trucking, there's not a ton of cash flow, right? So we were always saying like, well, there's got to be a way to scale this trucking company and give the drivers more income, because I knew that driver retention was an issue and I wanted to combat that. I wanted to get the best drivers I could, pay them as much as I absolutely could, and keep them, right? The only way I could do that is I had to find money from somewhere. So we ended up hiring 5 people directly from the Philippines at once. I don't recommend this, by the way, directly, and starting to delegate tasks out to them. So they started doing dispatch, accounts payable, accounts receivable. And really, these were just connections we had because we have relationships in the Philippines, and we're like, let's just do it. Like everything else, let's just do it. We'll figure it out as we go, fight it in the air. And essentially, Valey is everything I wish I had when I did that. So one thing I didn't have, Joe and Tony, when I did this, I didn't have SOPs. Dude, I didn't know what the hell an SOP was, for real. Like I was like,
yeah,
I didn't, man. It was embarrassing a little bit because that was one of those things. I'm like, I had to go search the internet real quick to be cool, right? To be kept up. And I didn't know what an SOP was. I had no idea how to delegate. Because again, going back to my story before, I didn't love asking for help. Delegation is asking for help. You're saying, you do this, you're working on this, you work on this. That wasn't great. So what Valey does is, it's easy to say, okay, we're a outsourcing company. Because I mean, essentially at the end of the day, yes, we can place executive assistants, but way more so than that is we like to go in and discover what a business is doing, help them set up SOPs, look through SOPs if they have them, set up processes and procedures, give them that business playbook so that they know where they're going first. Once they know where they're going, in that direct route, we can bring in teams. Sometimes we don't bring in anybody, Joe and Tony. Sometimes we'll set up, we also have integrations people that are really freaking good at integrations and optimizations and making systems work together and flow together to where we can automate a lot of it. They might already have assistants. They don't need them, right? But we have a team that can do that. But the cool thing is if they do have an executive assistant with us, they work with our backend team because our team works, as a unified group. So they all have connections together. They all work together. Some are good at integrations. Some are good at marketing. Some are good at accounting. They can all work together to try and achieve that founder's goal or that operator's goal. Then really that's where we're like trying to find that good mix is how can we provide a white glove service to companies, give them exactly what they need, and allow them to, scale up. And I think we just lost them, Cam. So we're on our own.
Hey, we got free reign of the show. Let's go.
So now we can really start.
And I think, well, and they'll probably hop back in here, but I think, that's what helped me. And that's why when we kind of collaborated, I think getting through projects and let's look at this. And we, it was so funny because we looked internally and you didn't, you looked to me to help me become successful in what my business was. I was seeking to do something to help other people. And ultimately, kind of when we got and arrived back at the same juncture, we're like, the biggest goal is to help others, right? That's kind of when we connected on that piece. And I'm like, selfishly, I could have been like, no, John, we're just going to work on Valey trucking insurance and let's take this thing to the moon and let's do what we're talking about, but internally. And then, obviously I'm in a lot of mastermind groups, a lot of different mentorship things. People come to me and I'm like, why aren't we trying to do this for others, for the Cameron that was sitting there 15 years ago needing help, that has like this opportunity of scale? So, and obviously I wish, hindsight's 2020. When you look back, it's like, man, I wish I knew what I know now back then. So that's where some of this discovery and the onboarding piece like our process is literally like scale. So we'll scan the business, we come in and kind of help them identify. To John's point, some people don't have SOPs. Most don't. In fact, most insurance agents that become agency owners are really just operators, but they're dysfunctional business people. They don't know how to run a business. And it's not a dig. It's just that they aren't there yet. They haven't taken the time to learn or read or study or get the books. You don't have to go to college, news alert. You don't have to go get an education to learn how to run a business, but you have to learn. And I'm a lifelong learner and I always read. Every day I read, I'm consuming things. I'm seeking out coaching, mentorship, guidance in some way. So in that process, I'm not going to say I'm great at business, but I'm much better than I ever was back then. And then we give clarity to the gaps. I think clarity in vision, Tony talked about this at the beginning of the show. Hey, I'm doing regular meetings with my team to gain clarity, unified vision, and we speak the same language. We know what we're all doing. A lot of people struggle with that. So like we try to kind of clarify the gaps from an operations standpoint there. We'll place and then embed virtual executive assistants at whatever level. This is where, John, you and I saw together, we're like, yes, and it's trendy. Virtual employees aren't anything new. If you guys have, in COVID really forced this, hired anybody that's not in your office, they're a virtual employee, news alert. Like, it's not new. Nothing about this is new. Companies have built cities overseas with call centers. I mean, this is what has happened for a long time. But what I figured out, though, is there's a lot of these services out there. And there's really good ones. I got friends that own them. And I was so hesitant to come into this because I'm like, man, I'm not trying to compete with them. I don't want to be them. I'm not trying to replace these things. And I'm not trying to take I don't know how to explain it, but I kind of was torn on that. But I'm like, but what we're doing is changing people's lives. We're breaking through ceilings. We're given this opportunity to do things that I never had and do it in a way that you've almost got access to mentorship, guidance, systems, all these things in one by getting these high level people. And so we knew early on, I've used all these services for a long time. We've hired direct. I've hired out of Puerto Rico. I've hired all over the place. We got people in Canada, you name it, now in my company. And what I realized is like, I had such a bad train of thought. I'm like, you know what? I need someone to literally enter applications and do data entry or check my email. And I'm like, that's what I'm going to pay someone to do. And in my mind, I'm like, you don't have to pay them very much. Like, you're going to get someone to be able to do that. And that's exactly true. You don't pay very much. You get exactly that. All of a sudden it was like, they need to do a little bit more. They may or may not be good. You go through more people. You train these people for literally a month of your time, especially when you hire the first one, dude. You're spending day and night getting this person trained, unloading all these things that you want to delegate because you're so excited to delegate because you finally got to the point. I'm like, I'm going to get rid of all this and have someone do it now and it'll free me up. And then that person leaves and you're like, crap. I don't know if I can cuss on this show. I'm not going to cuss, but it's like, man. And then all of a sudden it's like, I got a bitter feeling about this. Now that stung really bad. And I don't want to do that again. And I don't want it. So part of our onboarding is it was like, okay, two things, no contracts, because those people are locked in for a contract. Usually it's a 12-month contract. I'm like, then you're stuck just replacing person after person. And you get kind of a jaded feeling about it. At least I did early on. This is a long time ago. And then the other thing is like the onboarding process. Everyone's like, you know, it's trendy, I think, in insurance. That's why we're more global scale. We cater to trucking and transportation and real estate and attorneys and all these different industries we work with. Insurance being the background, obviously, just by proximity. We've got a lot of clients that own insurance agencies. Like, you know, that's there. And we got trucking and transportation because John's proximity. So like that's there. We're placing dispatch. We're placing all these back end people. And it's so great, but what we're really focused on is delivering that person that in the States cost you $100,000, or depending on market, could be 80, 120, that by the time you come over here, we get them placed. They're a fraction of the cost. They're probably maybe $3,000 a month, or if you wanted a fractional I don't know, CFO or something like that goes up from scale from there. But we always looked at making sure that we are getting the top talent. In fact, John, you and I were talking about this. We pay our people more than a lot of other services charge. Mm-hmm. And that was a big point that you and I got across, because global economy and the people that are valuable that we want to like be wowed by every day. And when you place this person in your business, your mind's blown every day by their excellence and like what they bring to the table and the value they bring to your team. Well, that doesn't come cheap. You get what you pay for in scenarios, yes. Right? So, you know, it's funny. They keep cutting out. So now all of a sudden it's like, all right. Oh, hey, yeah. We're back.
We're back.
What's up, guys? Nice to see you.
Yeah, no, you're good. But we just kind of wrapped up that thought, and there's more to like our process, but we just wrapped up that thought. Like, we want to be wowed by the people that are on our team every single day. And we want to like really nourish people and like give them a place where they can thrive. Right. And when, you know, we made a decision to go premium in this space relative, only due to what the market set and some of our competitors and some of the spaces we're familiar with, where we actually pay our people more than what they charge some of the placements that for some of our people listening and viewers, what they're paying for the service, because you get what you pay for. And like that trap that I fell into of like, man, I'm going to hire this person to do data entry, but I only want to pay them $6 an hour or whatever, like whatever the cost is, you know, you can make up, insert, whatever there. You know, I realize there's levels to this, just like us, right? Just like Joe, just like Tony, just like people you talk to, the 25-year agent you judged. It's like, oh, there's levels to this. So all of a sudden, when I got introduced and we started hiring people out of what, John, Netflix, Asia, and some of these other places, they came in, they legit, if you go to my website, you know, valeytruckininsurance.com, those were literally virtual employees that built out the chatbot, the logos, the images, the layout. Like these are the people we hired.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, I didn't realize this is even possible. You can get, I mean, insert whatever service here, because we're paying a premium and we're going over and fetching the highest talent. And we've got a whole process to vet, to onboard, to assess, to place, to do this entire thing. Security is always paramount to us. So like we placed a huge amount of resources and investment and time and energy on like cyber, right? The security protocols, the lockdown, the embed, because what John, and I wouldn't do this without John, by the way, because of his connections, his ties, and like he lived there, his wife's from there. Like there's a whole other side to this. But John was like telling me, he goes, man, because we were trying to place direct, and we placed direct. I'm not going to lie. But it was the equivalent to just putting an ad out in rural Arkansas, having a bunch of people apply, you trusting that they're good at what they're doing with your business, and then they work for 4 other businesses at the same time. Like that's what is happening over there. And you have no way to know this or stop it or even vet it, or who knows what's happening with the data, the security, all that kind of stuff. But you can take a little bit, John, and fill in what you want.
You summed it up great. I mean, at the end of the day, our goal is to, you know, bring that premium level of service. And I'll be honest with both of you guys, it's not the easiest sell because of what's happening to virtual assistants in general. A lot of times I try, and if you guys can help me figure this out too on selling this, because you guys are the master salesmen of getting away from we're an agency. Because generally, and I've had lots of conversations, I have one actually in about 20 minutes right now, is that, well, yeah, but my buddy does it for like $7 an hour. And it's like, I have to get, like, we offer premium. So the goal is that, and this is really cool for me because I've always like prided, I've always had a lot of pride, and I try to pay my people more than the average, but I also expect more than the average as well.
Yeah.
But I want them to win, because if they're winning on their personal lives, guess what's going to happen? They're probably going to be more apt to winning on their professional lives as well. The same concept works in the Philippines. Just because they're in a different country doesn't mean, they're not wanting a better life for themselves. Right. So if I pay them minimum Philippine wages, sure, I can get people for $3 an hour if I want to. Like, I can get them for cheaper than that probably. But again, just like it works here, you get what you pay for. Yeah. So when we pay people over there extraordinary rates, trust me, I've had when I met my wife made $6 a day working at the place she worked at. And that was higher than average, believe it or not, in her locality. So when we pay people, up to, $40,000 a year in the Philippines, huge money in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. Like you're living great.
Changing entire lives.
Changing lives. And I've seen it. And it's one of the coolest feelings ever to be like, hey, my family and I just got our car, which is not, it's becoming more, normal there, but it's not, super normal. Or we just got to buy our new house or our second property or put our kids through college. And it's like, yes, this is what we want. So we can make our team in the Philippines thrive beyond all measure. But we're still saving money over here, because we all know, or at least I know, what a $45,000 employee gets me in the US right now. Right. And again, not trying to slam people that make $45,000 a year. That's not the goal here. It's just, there's a different level, because $45,000 a year here is like, let's not, call it what it's not. You cannot live on $45,000 a year. It's going to be a husband and wife working in most areas, I'm going to say, to make that possible. So in the Philippines, though, you can thrive. And so we can kind of pass that savings on and get great, exceptional results. And so, it's really changing that stereotype to be like, we don't even toil in the space of $7 an hour for us. That's not, we don't want to, right? There's people that do really, really good at that. And there's a lot of really amazing companies, out there that do this. We want to offer something that's premium. So when our executive assistant, or say they don't use an executive, so they just use, CFO, or they use, integration specialist, they come into that founder with a founder's mind. So these people we look for, we do testing. We don't hire very many people. We do aptitude testing on the back end. I have another interview in about after my, a couple hours from now with somebody in the Philippines. We do multiple interviews with them just to see where their head's at, because we want them to be able to come into like the founder and be kind of a coach. Be someone that's been there, they've done it, they have real experience. Because at the end of the day, again, we're trying to not make the founder have to figure out delegation. If we can make the executive assistant help that founder delegate and learn what to delegate, how to delegate, take away that shallow work, rather than just wait there and be asked for it, like, it's winning, for us, because they can there's real support.
Something that's cool, Joe and Tony, is like one of our clients struggled honestly just with brand and image and their website design. Sure. And it's like, well, we got people that can do all of that are really good at that. And so as a package, it's like, hey, here's a brand Bible. Here's a website redesign. Here's a logo refresh. Here's everything in a nice package for you to now take to your team, or if you're the marketing specialist and the sales guy and everything, like most of the people we know are, it's like, hey, here's a great organized thing for you. And here's a fresh take on it and somebody else. And then in fact, so like the one, we built out the whole website, right? And then the other kid was like, hey, we need a chat bot. It's like, okay, cool. So, he went out and researched all the competitors' websites, terminologies, names, like anything that we can use to put into the chat bot. Like, he did it on his own. I didn't even think about it. I'm like, dude, that's brilliant. I'm like, dude, okay, let's go. And then he just kept coming up with, hey, what about this? What about that? Let's refresh forms. Here's some competitor things. I think we should look at doing this and implement that. It was like, dude, it was next level for me. So that's kind of what started to sell me on like quality, which then also kind of led me down the path of like, what do founders or high level or managers or high performing salespeople need? Well, they need just good talent around them. And so do the service staff, and so do whoever, so that they can get out of going back to the work that they don't want to do. And it could be low level, or it could be answering phones, or it could be data entry, or it could be, accounting or fractional work or whatever, reconciliation. It could be any of that. It's just, what is the need? Okay, great. How is this going to elevate your people? How's this going to elevate your process? How can we define the SOPs for you? and then see weaknesses to then help you like, hey, have you thought of doing this? Or, those systems can connect or talk, or have you talked to my guy over here at, whatever. Like it just helps us get more of a holistic approach where we can actually help break through those ceilings, kind of bringing it full circle where it's like, no one did that for me. No vendors ever did that. It's like, hey, here you go. Oh, by the way, they're trained, which they're really not. They know how to log into your system and know a couple terms, and like they're ready to go. And it's like you get them in there, and it's like, dude, I got to train this person anyway. So
round up, right?
Part of it is helping people understand in the discovery. You're not even ready for a system, a solution, or a process, or an executive assistant, or whatever, until you've got maybe a little bit more clarity. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Where are you going? What's your goals? What's your vision? How can we help? Do you have any processes? That's fine. We'll help you. Like that. Yeah. That's why I think the discovery and the onboarding, we spend so much time. It's a 90-day process. It doesn't take 90 days to get onboarded. It's very quickly as far as onboarding goes. But like during that first 90 days, it's a lot of intimate work with oversight and a manager overseeing the person and like helping define and what that looks like. And then it's not like we're coming in and saying, hey, you should do this or pay for this or buy this. It's more, how can we help? Like, yeah, what are you struggling with? Well, we can help with this. Here's some examples. Like, and a lot of the time it's just built in. It's like, our person has access to the graphic design person. Hey, they just need help doing their brand guide. Cool. Great. We got you. Like, yep, right. No problem. That kind of stuff. And then I'm really excited. It's hard not to get into like the future of where we're going and the hires and some of the things that we're developing. But we'll just keep it where it's at now. Think of like a Dyson vacuum. What does it do? Never loses suction. It's really good. But really a Dyson vacuum can do all this cool stuff. Like you can detach it, put it here, do that. I mean, it's crazy. So like, that's kind of what I talked to John about. I'm like, we can't talk about all these other things. Let's focus. Let's get it very clear on this.
Not talking about the attachments yet. Yeah.
Yeah. But then once you get in there, man, that's where the excitement comes. Because Joe, that's where when we visited, you're like, dude, like it got really exciting. Right. And you're like, this stuff's awesome. I can't wait to do it. But you can't, you got to start somewhere, be very clear. And then how do we help define and change business from the inside holistically, slowly, take step at a time, and then go into it. And then that's where it gets really exciting.
We know that good salespeople want to do one thing. They just want to be selling. They don't want to do all the other stuff, the inefficiencies, et cetera. And that's similar with an owner operator. They run in that similar mindset. They always want to be in the hunt. Right. They don't want to have to deal with the details. Just like John said, you start talking to me about taxes and W-2s and all this. You're like, I'm checked out, bro. I'm done. I'm in hunt mode. So what are, and that goes back to your statement in regards to building the process to support that, to support those people. Yeah. What are some of the common problems that you find that those business owners are in? Like, what are the common ones that you run across?
Yeah, for sure. And I think there is a lot of common ones. Like I think amongst people that maybe are A-type or not very detail driven. And a lot of that can be from compliance, back-end support, data entry, pulling down, for example, I'll just keep it maybe insurance focused. John can talk on a couple trucking things, but like, auditing new business files, literally pulling down the renewals, assigning them to the different staff and tasks. Obviously the systems do that, right? Your CRMs and all these things help, but then there's things within there that can help on prep or pre-renewal prep or setting appointments or answering phones, doing certs. I mean, it can be a multitude of any of these things, but like we have them do reconciliation. We have them do projects, audit projects, cancellation projects, scrubbing of the list and data and helping the salespeople put their stuff together to go prospect. I mean, it's legit kind of whatever you want. And I try to think, what are the dominoes that people have on their page every single day or their plate every single day that like could be knocked down with repetition or process? Can I train it? And it's something that maybe the salesperson shouldn't be doing, which is most things, by the way. They should be selling. Just for this, your comment there. And it's like any of that, right? I mean, it can legit be someone that answers your phones and checks your calendar and books this and helps you. I mean, it could be like a legit executive assistant. I mean, at that level, it's whatever the discovery process leads us to. And so many people have so many different thoughts on that, where it's like not one size fits all. That's why we don't train them per se in insurance.
Well, that's the important part of the discovery part, right? It's like when you really get to me, when I hear what you guys are talking, it's white glove service, baby. Yeah. But you gotta, in order to provide that white glove service, you got to know, all right, what service do they even want freaking provided, man?
Yeah.
I think that's really strong. really strong.
And it's not that we won't have niche out products. Like, let's say it might be dispatch for trucking, or it might be, change request and something for insurance. It's not that won't ever happen, or it's like you got a repetitive process, Tony, to your point. They'll be trained, but all of our people are proficient at a minimum level, especially on the placement and the assessment at a very high level. So these people have a background, a lot of college educations, bachelor's, master's degrees. They come with like 10-year resumes of working in an attorney's office or real estate, or like Netflix, for example, or whatever their background is. So when we try to do the discovery, it's like, if Tony, you came to me, it's like, this is what I think I need help with. Well, we're going to help go through that process. And if that's what we've identified, and it's like, hey, it's very clear, you're ready for this, we're set up, we'll just find a good fit, give you a few examples of people. If you need someone that's on the phone, they're very fluent. Like, you can't even tell my people, they are overseas. And, if you call and like, Joe, you're in Texas and you guys are in Texas, like, yeah, I can kind of tell, but a lot of the world, they don't even know. They have no clue that it's a different part of the world, different time zone. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to just say, okay, here's all they do, but they do really good at what they're hired to do. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. And I know we're getting ready to wrap up here, but I mean, same thing in logistics. It's actually we're currently working on training up people and recruiting people for dispatch service that have worked in logistics industries in the background. So this is more of a custom search for us. This is something we, go out and look for connections in the background to actually figure, can they take over operations? Do they understand the culture in the US with trucking companies and brokerages to, make a impact on the business? So, I'm currently going through and scouting with people that actually have multiple years in the Philippines. So we do different tiers. Obviously, we don't need to do a super high level person if they're just going to be managing emails and calendars, right? So,
Sure.
But on the premium level, what we're doing now for like one client is finding actually someone that can really come in and take over operations with trucks, and booking those trucks and working with drivers. To find that person, though, they have to have experience and background. So, we have people from Convoy, in brokers that used to work for Convoy and some larger trucking companies and brokerages here in the US. And they come over, and the goal here, and the reason we like to keep our team so unified, is they're dedicated to the client 100%. But internally, we have weekly team meetings where our chief of staff in the Philippines actually gets together with these team and encourages them on personal growth, right? So we actually support and provide like books and lessons and education and encourage them to help teach each other to grow and elevate, right? Again, it comes back to that, if they can achieve more. So yeah, in trucking, everything, man. We've done dispatch, safety, AP, AR, just like everything, even breaking down to like HR, taking care of employee needs and whatnot. And basically anything that doesn't have to be boots on the ground here in the US, we've been able to successfully achieve over there, by different levels and finding different people to do so.
Dig it.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful. All right, y'all. We've been going a little long. I apologize for our connectivity issues, guys, but seriously, like, I could sit here and just talk for hours. We'll have to do a part 2 where we really, and maybe we do that one in Trucking Syndicate, where we really like get into the nitty gritty of how, you could leverage Valey within your trucking agency. And even more so than just trucking, right? I love that piece. And the discovery part is just so important. I love that you guys do that. But Tony, go ahead and close us out, man. This has been awesome.
Man. Thanks. Thank you guys for coming in. This has been a joy, and certainly enlightening for me, because I don't come from that world at all, but I appreciate, certainly I understand the operations efficiencies, because that's a space that I am still growing and learning through myself and our new agency that I'm building. So love that stuff. I agree. A round 2 would be great, because I have more questions for you guys myself. But thanks for coming in, man. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Sorry we had some outage issues. First phone call I'm making today is with Spectrum Internet, guaranteed. But we will have it fixed for next Wednesday.
Woo.
Tune in again. It's the peak of the week. Put the throttle down, and we'll see you next week for Winning on Wednesday.
And have a happy 4th too. Hope everybody has a great, safe weekend. Thanks, guys. Later.